The message arrived without warning. Commander Alan Rogers stood on the bridge of the Endeavour, reading it again to make sure he understood correctly. All human vessels are to return to Sol system immediately. This is not a drill. Authentication. Code, Victor Echo 793. Earth command out. Alan ran his hand through his graying hair and looked around at his crew. They were just 3 days into their diplomatic mission to the Ardani homeworld. The Ardani were one of the most powerful species in the Galactic Council, and this meeting had taken years to arrange. Sir? Lieutenant Olivia Grant approached from her communications station. I'm getting similar reports from all human ships across Council space. Everyone's being called home. Alan nodded slowly. Send confirmation to Earth Command. Then inform the Ardani that we must leave immediately due to an emergency. What kind of emergency, sir? Olivia asked quietly. I wish I knew, Alan replied. Across the galaxy, the same scene played out on hundreds of human vessels. Diplomatic missions ended abruptly. Trade agreements were left unsigned. Research teams packed up mid-experiment. Within 48 hours, every human ship had changed course for Earth. On the massive space station that served as the headquarters for the Galactic Council, High Counselor Zex Tara of the Ardani Imperium called an emergency meeting. Representatives from 27 spacefaring civilizations gathered in the Great Circular Chamber. One seat remained conspicuously empty, that of the human delegate. Where is Counselor Harmon? Demanded Zexatara. The tall, blue-skinned Ardanis, facial membranes fluttered with irritation. This is the 3rd session he has missed. Counselor Nix Vala, a slight, feathered being who had worked closely with humans for decades, stood up. The human delegation departed the station yesterday. All of them. They gave no explanation beyond urgent matters at home. Murmurs spread through the chamber. Counselor Vrex of the Tellarite Federation pounded his heavy fist on the table. First they canceled trade negotiations, and now this. It can only mean one thing: they prepare for war. Let us not jump to conclusions, said Nixivala. Humans are unpredictable, yes, but they have been peaceful members of this council for 20 years. Zextara raised a long-fingered hand for silence. What do our monitoring stations report? Is there unusual military activity near Earth? A technician approached with a datapad. That's just it, High Counselor. We're not receiving any transmissions. From the Sol system, nothing at all. Impossible, Zextara said. A system with 12 billion humans and colonies on 4 planets cannot simply go silent. Yet it has, the technician replied. All communication relays in and out of human space have been shut down from their side. The last automated merchant vessel crossed their border 6 hours ago. The council erupted in concerned voices. Humans were newcomers to the galactic community, having achieved faster-than-light travel only 50 years earlier. Yet in that brief time, they had expanded rapidly, established a significant military presence, and proven themselves clever negotiators and valuable allies during the Proxima conflict with the aggressive Vorlak horde. And now they had disappeared, without explanation. At the edge of Council space, Commander Patricia Wells stood on the bridge of the Unity, the last human diplomatic vessel to leave alien territory. A Council communication ship followed at a respectful distance, broadcasting requests to speak. Commander, they're hailing us again, said Communications Officer Ben Jordan. That makes 17 attempts in the last hour. Patricia sighed. Maintain communications blackout as ordered. Ma'am, Ben said hesitantly. These are our allies. Don't they deserve some explanation? Patricia looked at the faces of her bridge crew. They all showed the same confusion and concern. I don't like it either, she admitted. But orders are orders. Earth Command was absolutely clear. Complete communication blackout with all non-human entities, effective immediately. The ship's science officer, Dr. Frank Willis, approached with a tablet. Commander, we're picking up unusual energy readings from Earth. They're unlike anything in our database. Patricia studied the readings with a frown. Could it be some kind of weapon test? Possibly, Frank replied. But the scale is Enormous. Whatever they're doing back home, it's big. Patricia nodded grimly. All the more reason to get back quickly. Increase speed to maximum. 2 weeks later, the Galactic Council convened again. This time, representatives from military and intelligence services were present. It has been 20 standard days since humanity went dark, Zexatara announced. Our probes report a complete cessation of human activity outside their solar system. All outposts and colonies beyond Sol have been evacuated. General Krasnar of the Ardani Defense Force displayed a holographic map. We have detected unusual energy signatures emanating from the Sol system. They appear to be consistent with massive construction efforts. What are they building? Asked a representative from the peaceful Lorindi worlds. Unknown, replied the general. But given humanity's rapid technological advancement in recent decades, we must consider all possibilities. Counselor Vrex growled. I told you. They prepare for war. We should strike now before they are ready. Zexatara silenced him with a glare. We will not take aggressive action based on speculation. However, I propose establishing a monitoring cordon around human space. No ships will enter or leave undetected. The motion passed unanimously. Within days, council vessels took up positions at strategic points surrounding human territory, careful to remain in international space. In a private meeting after the session, Nixavala approached Zexatara. High Counselor, I knew the humans better than most. This behavior is concerning, yes, but not necessarily threatening. What do you mean? Asked Zexatara. Humans are pragmatic, Nixavala explained. When they face a threat, they do not posture or make speeches. They simply act. If they have withdrawn completely, it suggests they are facing something that requires their full attention. Or planning something that requires secrecy, countered Zexatara. Nixavala's feathers rustled in the equivalent of a shrug. Perhaps. But remember what Admiral Collins told us after the Proxima conflict? He said, if humanity ever goes quiet, be afraid. Zexatara's membranes darkened with concern. I remember, but he never explained what he meant. I believe he was warning us, said Nixavala. Not about humans themselves, but about what might cause humans to go silent. As they spoke on the far side of the galaxy, a council science vessel detected an anomaly in deep space. The crew watched in horror as a dark mass swarmed over a distant star, extinguishing its light completely. Before they could report their findings, their ship was torn apart by forces they couldn't comprehend. The age-old enemy that humanity had discovered was on the move, and Earth had gone quiet. To prepare. 6 months passed since humanity's sudden withdrawal. The monitoring cordon around Sol system remained in place, with council ships keeping careful watch. No human vessel had attempted to leave their territory. No transmissions had broken their self-imposed silence. On the council station, High Counselor Zexatara stared out at the stars from his private chamber. The words of Admiral Gary Collins echoed in his mind. If humanity ever goes quiet, be afraid. Those words, spoken casually at a diplomatic function 3 years earlier, now seemed like a chilling prophecy. A soft chime announced a visitor. Counselor Nixvala entered, carrying a data tablet. You asked for the historical records, said Nixvala, placing the tablet on Zextara's desk. Thank you, old friend. Zextara gestured to a chair. Please sit. Share what you have learned. Nixvala's feathers rippled with concern. The pattern is troubling. Since their first contact with the Council, humans have advanced technologically at a rate unprecedented among spacefaring species. We knew this already, said Zextara. Yes, but consider the context. Nixvala brought up a timeline on the tablet. From their first atmospheric flight to achieving faster-than-light travel, took them just 164 years. What took most species millennia, they accomplished in less than 2 centuries. Zexatara's facial membranes darkened, and their approach to warfare? Equally disturbing, admitted Nixvala. The Proxima conflict lasted only 3 weeks. In the year, Vorlak Horde had been raiding Council worlds for decades. No one could stop them. Then humans entered the war. I remember, said Zextara grimly. The human fleet was outnumbered 6-1. Yet they won decisively, said Nixvala. Their tactics were unpredictable, desperate even. They used mining ships as weapons and civilian vessels as traps. They fought like a species with nothing to lose. Zextara stood and paced the room. And now they have vanished into their home system, and we detect strange energy readings consistent with massive construction. What are they building, Nixvala? What has frightened humanity so much that they have turned their backs on the galaxy? Before Nixvala could answer, Zextara's communication device chimed urgently. High Counselor, your presence is requested in the emergency chamber immediately. 10 minutes later, Zextara entered a room where the Council's military leadership had gathered. General Krasnar stood beside a holographic display. High Counselor, we have a situation, said the general. Counselor Vexnar's reconnaissance mission to Sol System has failed. Zextara's membranes fluttered in alarm. Failed? Explain. Their ship disappeared upon reaching the edge of the Sol System, said Krasnar. No distress signal, no debris, field. It simply vanished. Murmurs of concern filled the room. Zextara raised a hand for silence. Were they detected entering human space? Unknown, replied the general. But there is more. We have reports of several independent merchant vessels disappearing near the Sol System in recent weeks. We recovered wreckage from one. He gestured, and the hologram changed to show twisted metal fragments. Our analysis indicates weapons technology far beyond known human capabilities. The room fell silent. Finally, Zextara spoke. Is there anyone who might help us understand what is happening? Anyone with insight into human thinking? A junior officer stepped forward. There is Lieutenant Samantha Miller, a human scientist who chose to remain in Council space when the recall order came. She is currently at Research Station Epsilon. Bring her here, ordered Zextara. Immediately. 2 days later, Lieutenant Samantha Miller stood before the Council leadership. She was a young woman with short brown hair and a cautious expression. Lieutenant Miller, began Zextara, we need your help understanding your species' actions. Samantha nodded slowly. I'll help if I can, High Counselor, though I know as little as you do about why Earth has gone silent. Why did you stay behind? Asked Nixvala. My research on stellar phenomena was too important to abandon, she replied. At least that's what I believed. Now I wonder if I made the right choice. Zextara leaned forward. Lieutenant, what would cause your entire species to withdraw from galactic affairs? What could explain this behavior? Samantha considered the question carefully. In our history, there are precedents for this kind of isolation. Usually, it happens when we're preparing for something big, something that requires complete focus. Such as, prompted Krasnar. In the 20th century, we had something called the Manhattan Project, developing the first atomic weapons. Complete secrecy was maintained. In the 21st century, there was the Mars Initiative. Again, years of quiet preparation before a major breakthrough. She paused. Humans tend to go quiet when we're either very afraid or very determined, often both. And these energy readings? Zextara displayed the data they had collected from Sol System. Samantha studied the readings, her expression growing troubled. These look like testing patterns for something massive. Energy levels this high could indicate planetary-scale engineering. Weapons? Asked Krasnar bluntly. Possibly, Samantha admitted. Or defenses. Or something else entirely. As they spoke, an aide rushed into the chamber and whispered urgently to General Krasnar. The general's expression hardened. High Counselor, we have received disturbing news, he announced. Intelligence reports indicate increased activity from the Krell Empire. Their fleet movements suggest they are preparing for a major offensive. The Krell? Zextara's membranes paled. Why now? Our analysts believe they see humanity's absence as an opportunity, said Krasnar. Without human military support, they may calculate that the Council is vulnerable. Samantha looked alarmed. The Krell have always been cautious around humans. They remember how quickly we defeated the Vorlak horde, and now they believe you are out of the picture, said Nixvala grimly. The meeting was interrupted by another urgent message. This one came from a border outpost near the Sol system. High Counselor, reported the station commander. We've recovered wreckage from another ship that disappeared near human space. The damage pattern is unlike anything we've seen before. The hologram showed twisted metal with strange, organic-looking patterns etched into its surface. Parts of the hull appeared to have been dissolved rather than broken. That's not from any human weapon I've ever seen, Samantha whispered, her face pale. Zextara turned to her sharply. What is it, Lieutenant? You recognize this damage pattern? No, she said slowly. But there were rumors before I left Earth. Scientists finding strange objects in deep space. Ancient warnings in ruins discovered on Mars. Nothing official, just whispers among the research community. Warnings about what? Pressed Zextara. Something old, she replied. Something that consumes. Something that comes from beyond the galaxy's edge. She looked up at the council members, fear evident in her eyes. Whatever humanity is preparing for, I don't think it's you that they fear. 1 year had passed since humanity went silent. The Galactic Council faced troubles on multiple fronts. Just as their intelligence reports had predicted, the Krell Empire launched a massive offensive against Council space. Their warships struck, without warning, targeting border outposts and lightly defended colonies. They would never have dared this when humanity stood with us, said General Krasnar, studying the holographic battle maps in the Council's war room. Red markers showed Krell advances across 3 sectors. High Counselor Zextara nodded grimly. The humans may have been unpredictable allies, but they were effective deterrents. The Krell feared their military capacity. Council forces struggled to contain the Krell advance. Without the human fleet's support, their defensive lines were stretched thin. The Ardani home fleet had been called back from the borders to protect their core worlds. We need to find out what happened to the humans, said Nixvala. If they knew the Krell were planning this attack, they would have warned us, Zextara finished the thought. Which means either they did not know, or they face a threat that takes priority even over a Krell invasion. That possibility troubled the Council leadership more than they cared to admit. On the far edge of Council space, Captain Jeff Howard commanded the defense of Outpost Sigma 9. His small force of 3 Council cruisers faced a Krell battle group twice their size. Shields at 30%, reported his tactical officer. We can't hold them much longer, sir. Jeff gripped the arms of his command chair. He was one of the few humans who had been off-world when the recall order came, and he had chosen to honor his commitment to the Council Defense Forces rather than return to Earth. Reroute power from non-essential systems, he ordered. We need to hold this position until the civilians can evacuate. The ship shuddered as another Krell blast struck their shields. Warning lights flashed across the bridge. Sir, called his communications officer, I'm picking up a new signal. Sir, it's a human encryption pattern. Jeff's head snapped. Up. What? That's impossible. Put it through. A familiar voice came over the speakers. Outpost Sigma 9. This is Admiral Diane Foster aboard the Valiant. We are approaching your position. Hold on, Captain Howard. Help is coming. Jeff could hardly believe his ears. Admiral Foster had been one of Earth's top military leaders. She had reportedly retired to Earth just before the Great Silence began. Admiral Foster, where did you come from? He asked. No time to explain, Captain. Prepare to adjust your shield frequencies on my mark. Minutes later, a small unmarked vessel appeared on their sensors, moving at incredible speed. It didn't match any known human ship design. As it approached the Krell formation, it released a series of energy pulses that somehow passed through the Krell shields, disabling their weapon systems. With the enemy temporarily vulnerable, Jeff's forces quickly gained the upper hand. The Krell retreated, leaving 2 disabled warships behind. When the battle ended, Admiral Foster's ship docked with the outpost. Jeff met her in the docking bay. She looked older than he remembered, with new lines of strain on her face. "Admiral," he said, saluting. "I never expected to see a human ship again, especially not one I don't recognize." "This isn't the time or place, Captain," she replied, glancing around at the mixed species crew watching them. "I need to speak to the Council immediately. The situation is worse than you know." 2 days later, Admiral Foster stood before an emergency session of the Galactic Council. Her appearance had caused a sensation. No human had been seen in Council space for over a year. "Admiral Foster," said High Counselor Zextara, "your arrival is unexpected, but timely. The Krell advance threatens many Council worlds." "The Krell are not the real threat," Foster said bluntly. "They're opportunists, nothing more. The true enemy is approaching from deep space, and it makes the Krell look like children with toys." Murmurs spread through the Council chamber. Foster activated a holographic projector she had brought with her. It showed images of entire star systems going dark. "We call it the Void Swarm," she explained, "an ancient enemy that consumes everything in its path. It hibernates for thousands of years, then awakens to feed. Its last active period coincided with the extinction of the precursor civilization." "The precursors?" gasped Nixavala. "But they vanished 20,000 years ago." "Yes," said Foster, "and now the swarm is back. We detected its approach 3 years ago, when it devoured an uninhabited system at the edge of explored space. That's why we went silent. We've been preparing." As if to confirm her warning, reports began flooding in from the outer colonies. Strange vessels had appeared, unlike any known design. They didn't respond to communication attempts. They simply attacked, consuming everything in their path. "The Void Swarm has arrived," said Foster grimly, "and it's hungry." Within hours, the Council received devastating news. 3 colony worlds in the Outer Rim had gone dark. All contact lost. The few survivors who escaped described scenes of horror, living darkness that consumed not just people but entire cities, turning matter into energy. "How do we fight this?" demanded General Krasnar. "Our weapons seem useless against them." "Conventional weapons are ineffective," confirmed Foster. "The swarm adapts quickly. That's why humanity withdrew. We needed to develop new technologies, new approaches." "You knew this was coming and didn't warn us?" accused Counselor Vrex. "We tried," Foster shot back. 3 years ago, our ambassador presented evidence of the approaching threat. Your scientists dismissed it as a natural phenomenon, said we were overreacting." Zextara looked troubled. "I remember the report. It seemed speculative at best." "So humanity decided to prepare alone," said Nixvala. Foster nodded. "We had to move quickly and quietly. The swarm is attracted to certain energy signatures our technology had been broadcasting across the galaxy. We went dark to avoid drawing it directly to Earth while we prepared." "And the Krell?" asked Krasnar. "A complication, but also an opportunity," said Foster. "Their attack forced the swarm to divide its attention. It bought us more time." Reports continued arriving from across Council space. The swarm moved faster than anyone had anticipated, consuming outposts and colonies with frightening efficiency. Council forces were ordered to evacuate civilians rather than engage the enemy directly. In a private meeting after the Council session, Zextara confronted Foster. "You say humanity has been preparing for this threat. What exactly have you been building in Sol System?" "Something that might save us all," she replied. "But I need your trust. I need a delegation of Council leaders to come with me to Earth." "To Earth?" Zextara's membranes fluttered in surprise. "No non-human has been allowed in Sol System since your withdrawal." "That changes now," said Foster. "The Void Swarm is here. Hiding is no longer an option. Will you come?" Zextara studied her face. "And if we refuse?" "Then you'll face the swarm alone," she said simply. Humanity can't defeat it without the Council, and you can't defeat it without us. We need each other, Counselor, more than ever before. After a long moment, Zexatara nodded. I will assemble a delegation, but know this, Admiral. If this is some kind of human deception... It's not, Foster interrupted. When you see what we've built, you'll understand why we went silent, and why the galaxy should have trembled not with fear of us, but with hope. Admiral Diane Foster's ship approached the edge of Sol system with a small delegation of Council representatives on board. High Counselor Zexatara stood on the bridge alongside Nixivala, General Krasnar, and scientists from 3 different Council species. We're approaching the security perimeter, announced Foster. Prepare for inspection. Suddenly, dozens of small objects appeared on their sensors, surrounding the ship in a perfect sphere. They had been completely invisible until now. What are those? Asked Krasnar, reaching instinctively for a weapon that wasn't there. Automated defense platforms, said Foster calmly. Just one layer of our new security system, don't worry, they know we're coming. A transmission came through and a stern human face appeared on the main screen. Admiral Foster, your ship is cleared for approach. Proceed on designated vector only. Any deviation will result in immediate response. As they moved deeper into the system, the Council delegates stared in amazement at what they saw. A massive defensive array surrounded the entire system. Thousands of platforms linked together in a complex network. Some were clearly weapons systems, while others appeared to be sensors or communication relays. This is extensive, said Zexatara, breaking the silence. And it's just the outer layer, replied Foster. Wait until you see Earth. They passed Mars, which had been transformed. The red planet was now covered with construction facilities, mining operations, and what appeared to be massive energy collectors. Ships of unfamiliar design moved between planets, many larger than anything the Council races had built. When Earth finally came into view, the delegates fell silent in shock. The planet was barely recognizable. Massive orbital structures surrounded it. The night side glowed with the lights of industry. The oceans reflected the gleam of what looked like underwater construction. What have you done? Whispered Nixivala. What we had to do, Foster said simply. We've been preparing for the Void Swarm for over 3 years. Every resource, every mind, every bit of industrial capacity focused on one goal: survival. Their IT ship docked at a massive space station in Earth orbit. Foster led them through corridors filled with humans working with urgent purpose. No one seemed surprised to see aliens in their midst. They were too busy with their tasks. In a large conference room, they were met by General Kevin Pierce, a tall man with close-cropped gray hair and a face weathered by stress. Welcome to Earth, he said without ceremony. I apologize for the lack of diplomatic niceties, but we don't have time for them. Admiral Foster has briefed you on the Void Swarm? Zexatara nodded. She has, though I must say we find it difficult to comprehend how humanity knew of this threat when the Council had no warning. We didn't know either until we found this, Pierce said. He activated a holographic display showing what appeared to be ancient stone tablets covered in unfamiliar symbols. These were discovered in a sealed chamber beneath the Martian surface 3 years ago. They were left by the precursors. You found precursor artifacts? Gasped one of the Council scientists. Their technology has been sought for millennia. Not their technology, corrected Pierce. Their warning. Once we translated it, we understood what happened to them. They were destroyed by the Void Swarm. Before they fell, they left warnings on dozens of worlds. Why didn't you share this discovery with the Council? Demanded Krasnar. We tried, Foster interjected. As I told you before, our initial reports were dismissed. By the time we had concrete evidence, our scientists calculated that the swarm would detect any major subspace communications. We had to go dark. Pierce continued. The precursor records gave us a starting point. Then we found Void Swarm remnants, dormant fragments that had drifted through space for thousands of years. By studying them, we developed new technologies. He led them to a viewing area overlooking a massive construction bay. Inside floated a strange device shaped like a massive tuning fork with a glowing core. This is Project Lighthouse, Pierce explained, the culmination of our efforts. It's not designed to destroy the swarm. We learned from the precursors that conventional attacks only make it stronger. Instead, it redirects it. Redirects it where? Asked Zextara. Into a quantum fold, essentially a pocket dimension, where it can feed on energy we provide without consuming inhabited worlds. Pierce's expression was grim. It's not a permanent solution, but it buys us time to develop something better. You mentioned the Krell attack was an opportunity, said Krasnar. Explain. Foster nodded. We detected the Krell fleet build up months ago. We could have warned you, but our models showed that the Krell attack would divide the swarm's attention. It was a tactical decision. You used the Krell as bait? Krasnar looked both impressed and disturbed. We used every advantage we could find, Pierce said without apology. The survival of all spacefaring species is at stake. He led them to another room, where dozens of humans worked at complex control stations. On a massive screen, they tracked the movements of both the Krell forces and the Void Swarm. The swarm consumes energy, explained a scientist named Dr. Emma Wilson. It's drawn to high-energy outputs, like those from our ships, stations, and weapons. That's why we shut down all non-essential operations and recalled our people. Every active ship, every transmission was like a beacon calling to it. But now you're activating everything, observed Nixvala. These defense systems must be putting out enormous energy signatures. Precisely, nodded Pierce. Now that the swarm is here, we want it to come to us, we're ready for it. Zextara stepped forward. You said humanity cannot defeat the swarm without the Council. What do you need from us? Pierce shared a look with Foster before answering. Project Lighthouse requires deployment at specific points throughout the galaxy. We need your ships, your resources, and your cooperation. And we need something else, added Foster. Trust. The kind that only comes from fighting together. Our people have seen humanity as aggressive, unpredictable, said Zextara. Your withdrawal only reinforced those fears. Perhaps it's time to see us differently, Foster suggested. Yes, we're aggressive when threatened. Yes, we're unpredictable in battle, but those traits might save us all. As they spoke, an alarm sounded. A lieutenant rushed into the room. General Pierce, Admiral. Foster, the Void Swarm has changed course. It's moving directly toward Earth faster than we predicted. How long? Asked Pierce. 3 days, sir. Maybe less. Pierce turned to the Council delegation. You came seeking answers. Now you have them. The question is, will you stand with us? Zextara looked at the humans around him, their determined faces, their tireless work, their desperate preparation for a threat that might destroy them all. We will, he said simply. Tell us what to do. 3 days after the Council delegation's visit to Earth, the combined fleets of humanity and the Galactic Council gathered at the edge of the Sol system. It was the largest assembly of ships ever seen in the galaxy. Human vessels, with their new technology, formed the center, surrounded by Council ships that had been quickly retrofitted with protective shields against the Void Swarm. Admiral Laura Chambers stood on the bridge of the flagship Guardian, watching as the last ships moved into position. After years of silence, humanity had sent a simple message to the galaxy. Stand with us. Status report, she ordered. All ships in position, Admiral, replied her executive officer. Project Lighthouse is ready for deployment. Council forces report ready status as well. Laura nodded. And the Void Swarm? Approaching from Sector 7. Estimated time to contact, 20 minutes. Laura opened a channel to the entire fleet. This is Admiral Chambers. For 3 years, humanity has prepared for this moment. We withdrew from the galaxy not out of fear or secrecy, but to protect everyone from drawing the swarm's attention before we were ready. Today we stand together with our allies against an enemy that threatens all life. She paused, looking at the faces of her crew, determined, focused, afraid, but resolute. The Void Swarm cannot be destroyed by conventional means. That's what the precursors discovered too late. Our plan is different. Project Lighthouse will create a quantum beacon that will confuse and redirect the swarm. Council ships will protect the deployment vessels. Human forces will engage the main body of the swarm to draw its attention. Across the fleet, humans and aliens prepared for battle. On the Council command ship, High Counselor Zexitara addressed his own forces. For too long, we viewed humanity with suspicion, he said. We saw their rapid advancement as a threat. Now we understand they were preparing not for conquest, but for defense. Today we fight alongside them, for the survival of all. The first signs of the Void Swarm appeared. On sensors, a massive, shifting darkness that seemed to devour the light of distant stars. It moved like a living thing, spreading tendrils ahead of its main mass. All ships maintain formation, ordered Laura. Remember your training, don't get isolated. The human fleet advanced, their new weapons ready. Ships equipped with prototype. Disruptors moved to the front lines. These weapons couldn't destroy the swarm, but they could temporarily disrupt its cohesion, buying precious time. As the swarm approached, its true scale became apparent. It was vast beyond imagination, a living darkness that stretched across thousands of kilometers. At its edges, it seemed almost transparent, but its center was a void of absolute blackness. First wave, engage, commanded Laura. Human ships fired their disruptors in a synchronized pattern. Where the energy beam struck, the swarm briefly scattered, its darkness fragmenting into smaller pieces. But it quickly reformed, adapting to the attack. Second wave, deploy countermeasures, Laura ordered. Smaller vessels released clouds of specially designed nanites, another technology developed from studying dormant swarm fragments. The nanites created energy signatures that confused the swarm, making it difficult for it to target ships directly. Meanwhile, Council ships protected the 3 large vessels carrying Project Lighthouse. These ships moved into precise positions, forming a triangle around the approaching swarm. Lighthouse vessels in position, reported Laura's tactical officer. Ready for activation. Commence lighthouse activation, Laura ordered. The 3 vessels began to emit a strange, pulsing energy that seemed to bend the space around them. A beam of brilliant blue light connected each ship to the others, forming a triangle that surrounded a portion of the swarm. For a moment, nothing seemed to happen. Then, slowly, the swarm began to change direction, drawn to the energy emissions from the lighthouse vessels. It moved away from the fleet toward the center of the triangle. It's working, someone whispered on the bridge. Maintain formation, Laura reminded them. This is just the beginning. Suddenly, a tendril of the swarm lashed out, wrapping around one of the lighthouse vessels. Alarms blared across the command network. Lighthouse 1 is under attack, reported the tactical officer. Shields failing. All nearby ships concentrate fire on that section of the swarm, ordered Laura. We need to free that vessel. Council and human ships moved to assist, firing everything they had at the attacking tendril. But the swarm had already adapted to their weapons. The tendril tightened, crushing the lighthouse vessel's outer hull. Lighthouse integrity compromised, came the report. The triangle is breaking down. On the view screen, Laura could see the blue energy beams flickering. Without all 3 points, the lighthouse wouldn't function. The swarm was already beginning to move away from the trap, back toward the fleet. We need a new plan, said her executive officer. Laura stared at the tactical display, mind racing. If we could create a new point to replace the damaged vessel, the energy requirements would be massive, objected her chief engineer. No ship in the fleet has that capability except this one, Laura finished. Plot a course. To replace Lighthouse 1, prepare to divert all power to the emitter arrays. Admiral, protested her executive officer. If we move the Guardian into that position, we'll be directly exposed to the swarm. The ship won't survive. It doesn't need to survive, Laura said quietly. It just needs to hold long enough. She opened a channel to the fleet. This is Admiral Chambers. Guardian is moving to replace Lighthouse 1. All ships, provide covering fire. Project Lighthouse must succeed no matter the cost. The massive flagship moved forward, engines straining. Around it, every available ship poured fire into the swarm, creating a temporary corridor for the Guardian to pass through. Captain Ryan Mitchell, commanding one of the escort vessels, watched as the Guardian approached the gap in the lighthouse formation. "They'll never make it," said his first officer. "The swarm is closing too fast." Ryan studied his tactical display, then made a decision. "Helm, plot an intercept course with that main swarm tendril. Weapons, prepare to overload our primary reactor." "Sir?" His weapons officer looked shocked. "You heard me." Ryan opened a channel. "Admiral Chambers, this is Captain Mitchell. We'll clear a path for you." Before Laura could respond, Ryan's ship accelerated toward the largest concentration of the swarm. It fired all weapons continuously, drawing the swarm's attention. "Reactor at critical levels," reported the engineer. "All hands abandon ship," ordered Ryan. "Escape pods away." As the crew evacuated, Ryan remained on the bridge, guiding his ship into the heart of the swarm. When the last pod was clear, he activated the final sequence. The ship exploded in a blinding flash, temporarily disrupting a massive section of the swarm. In that moment, the Guardian slipped into position, its powerful systems activating to form the third point of the lighthouse triangle. The blue energy beam stabilized, stronger than before. The triangle of light closed around the swarm, which writhed and struggled against the energy field containing it. "Lighthouse at full power," reported Laura's tactical officer. "The swarm is being redirected." On every ship in the fleet, crews watched in awe as the void swarm was pulled into what appeared to be a tear in space itself, the quantum fold created by Project Lighthouse. Minute by minute, the vast darkness was drawn into the fold, until finally, the last tendril disappeared. The fold closed behind it with a flash of energy that briefly outshone the sun. Silence fell across the command network. Then, slowly, cheers began to rise from every ship. Laura closed her eyes briefly, thinking of Captain Mitchell and all the others who had given their lives. "Damage report," she requested quietly. "Heavy losses, Admiral. 30% of our fleet. Council ships suffered similar casualties, but the swarm has been contained." In the aftermath, as recovery operations began, High Counselor Zexatera requested a meeting with the human leadership. They gathered in a conference room aboard the Guardian, which had survived despite heavy damage. "Today marks a new chapter in our shared history," said Zexatera. "Humanity has proven itself not as the threat we feared, but as the guardians we needed." General Pierce nodded solemnly. "This was just one swarm. Our scientists believe there may be others out there, hibernating, waiting. We'll need to work together to find them before they awaken. And we will," promised Zextera. "The Galactic Council chamber will be relocated to Earth orbit as a symbol of our new partnership." As recovery ships moved among the debris, collecting the fallen and salvaging what they could, a message was broadcast across all frequencies to every world in Council space. When humanity went silent, the galaxy trembled with fear. Now we know it should have trembled with hope.